What? I just paid for all of this. I'm walking to my car. The store manager says you bypassed the self-checkout without scanning everything. Put the bags down. That's not true. I scanned every item. My receipt is right here in my hand. I'm not interested in your receipt. Put the bags down and step over here. Officer, my name is Special Agent Terrence Holloway. I'm with the FBI. I'm off duty. I paid for everything in this cart and I have the receipt to prove it. FBI, sure you are. And I'm James Bond. Bags down, hands where I can see them. You are about to make a mistake that you cannot undo. The only mistake I see is you arguing with me. Turn around. If this is the first time you're watching one of our videos, do me a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button. Like this video, turn on the notification bell. We bring stories like this every single week. Stories about justice. Stories about people who thought they were above consequences. Stories that need to be shared. So subscribe, send this to someone, and let's get into what happened. Officer Dennis Hargrove had been with the Fairfax County Police Department for 5 years when he made the stop that ended his career and cost the county $2.6 million. He was 29 years old. He was the kind of officer who moved fast and asked questions later, and his files showed it. On a Sunday afternoon in April, Hargrove responded to a call from a grocery store manager about a possible shoplifter near the exit. The person the manager was pointing at was Terrence Holloway. Holloway was 41 years old. He had been a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation for 16 years. He worked out of the Washington field office. He had spent his career investigating organized crime, public corruption, and domestic terrorism. He had received commendations from 2 different FBI directors. And on that Sunday, he had just finished scanning $147 worth of groceries at a self-checkout machine, paid with his debit card, and was pushing his cart toward the exit with his receipt in his hand. What Hargrove did next, ignoring the receipt, dismissing federal credentials, and handcuffing a federal agent in front of weekend shoppers, would be recorded by 5 phones and seen by over 8 million people within a week. 7 complaints in 5 years. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. And that pattern finally met someone who knew exactly how to dismantle it. A black man in his early 40s, Special Agent Terrence Holloway was pushing a shopping cart through the front vestibule of Preston's Market in Fairfax, Virginia, with 4 bags of groceries and a receipt in his right hand. He was wearing a gray pullover, jeans, and running shoes. His FBI credentials were in his back pocket. He had just spent 20 minutes doing his weekly grocery run. No crime, no disturbance, no alarm, just a federal agent buying food on a Sunday afternoon. But the store manager had watched him at the self-checkout, decided something looked off, and called the police. The something that looked off was that Terrence Holloway was black. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Stories like these need to reach as many people as possible. Your support makes that happen. Preston's Market sits on Main Street in the town of Fairfax, Virginia, about 20 miles west of Washington, D.C. It is one of those grocery stores that tries to be a little bit of everything. Regular groceries on the left side, an organic section on the right, a deli counter in the back, and a bakery near the entrance that fills the entire store with the smell of fresh bread on weekend mornings. The prices are higher than a chain store but lower than a Whole Foods. The clientele is a mix of young professionals, families, government workers, and retirees. Fairfax is a suburb where a lot of people who work in D.C. live. Pentagon employees, congressional staffers, federal agents, defense contractors. It is educated, diverse, and relatively quiet. It was 2:20 in the afternoon on a Sunday in mid-April. The parking lot was about half full. Families were coming and going with carts. A man was loading bags into the back of a minivan. A woman was returning a cart to the corral. Inside, the store was moderately busy. The self-checkout area had 4 stations and 3 of them were occupied. Soft pop music played from the ceiling speakers. The bakery was running a special on sourdough loaves. A child was sitting in a cart eating a free cookie from the bakery counter. It was completely, utterly ordinary. This was Fairfax. Safe, suburban, routine. The kind of town where a Sunday grocery run is the most uneventful thing you do all week. The kind of store where the biggest complication is the self-checkout machine freezing on a barcode. But on this Sunday afternoon, a routine grocery trip was about to turn into a federal incident. And the only crime that happened inside that store was committed by the people who were supposed to be running it. Terrence Holloway had been with the FBI for 16 years. 16 years of some of the most complex and dangerous work in federal law enforcement. He had started as a special agent assigned to the Criminal Investigative Division at the Washington field office right after graduating from the FBI Academy at Quantico. His first major case involved a multi-state organized crime ring operating out of Northern Virginia. He spent 14 months undercover, helped build a case that led to 23 indictments, and earned his first official commendation before his third anniversary with the Bureau. After that, he moved to the Public Corruption Unit, where he investigated elected officials, government contractors, and federal employees who abused their positions. He led an investigation that resulted in the conviction of a sitting county commissioner on bribery and fraud charges. He then transferred to the Joint Terrorism Task Force, where he spent 5 years working domestic terrorism cases, coordinating with the CIA, NSA, and Department of Homeland Security on threat assessments and surveillance operations. Holloway had graduated from Hampton University with a degree in criminal justice, then earned a master's degree in forensic psychology from George Washington University. He had completed advanced training at the FBI Academy in counterintelligence, behavioral analysis, and crisis negotiation. He was certified in advanced firearms, tactical driving, and electronic surveillance. He had received commendations from 2 FBI directors and a personal letter of recognition from the Attorney General's office. In 2023, the Washington Field Office named him Agent of the Year. His supervisors described him as the kind of agent who makes the people around him better. His colleagues called him unshakable. At 41, Terrence Holloway was one of the most respected agents in the Washington Field Office. He had been married to his wife Sharon, a school principal in Arlington, for 14 years. They had 2 kids, a 12-year-old son, Marcus, who was obsessed with robotics and had just won his middle school science fair, and a 9-year-old daughter, Nyla, who did gymnastics and loved to read mystery novels. Holloway coached Marcus's robotics team. He volunteered as a mentor through the FBI's community outreach program. He ran the Marine Corps Marathon every October. He went to church on Sundays and grilled burgers for the neighbors on the 4th of July. That Sunday, Sharon had taken the kids to visit her mother in Richmond for the weekend. Holloway had stayed behind to catch up on a case file. By mid-afternoon, he was hungry, the fridge was empty, and he needed to do the weekly grocery run anyway. He drove to Preston's Market, the same store he had been shopping at for 3 years. He walked in at 1:58 p.m. He grabbed a cart, went through the aisles, and picked up chicken breasts, rice, broccoli, pasta, marinara sauce, eggs, milk, bread, a bag of apples, and a few snacks for the kids. He went to the self-checkout at 2:14 p.m. He scanned each item one at a time, bagged them in 4 reusable bags, and paid with his debit card at 2:18 p.m. The machine printed a receipt. He took it. He put it in his right hand. He loaded the bags into his cart and started walking toward the exit. He looked like exactly what he was. A man in weekend clothes pushing a grocery cart toward the door with a receipt in his hand. He had not set off any alarm. He had not skipped any item. The self-checkout system had processed every scan and the total matched what he paid. There was nothing wrong. There was nothing suspicious. There was nothing at all. But the store manager had been watching, and the store manager had seen something that concerned him, a black man at the self-checkout. That was enough. The manager's name was Todd Bridwell. He was 37 years old and had been the assistant manager at Preston's Market for 2 years. Before that, he had managed a sandwich shop and worked the floor at a big box electronics store. He had no training in loss prevention. He had no certification in security procedures. He had a title, a walkie-talkie, and the kind of confidence that comes from being in charge of a small space. On 3 separate occasions in the past year, Bridwell had called the police on shoppers. All 3 were black. In the first case, a black man was accused of not paying for a rotisserie chicken. He had. His receipt proved it. In the second, a black woman was stopped near the exit and asked to open her bag. She had paid for everything. The receipt proved it. In the third, a black teenager was followed through the store by Bridwell personally, who then confronted him in the parking lot and demanded to see inside his backpack. The teenager had not stolen anything. He had not even bought anything. He was waiting for his mother to finish shopping. None of these incidents had resulted in any disciplinary action against Bridwell. The store's corporate parent, Hartwell Grocery Group, had received 2 written complaints from customers. Both were noted in Bridwell's file. Both were closed with no action. That Sunday, Bridwell had been watching the self-checkout area from the customer service desk when Holloway walked up with his cart. Bridwell watched him scan his items. He watched him bag them. He watched him pay. And even though the self-checkout machine registered every scan and accepted the payment without any error flags, Bridwell decided something was not right. He didn't walk over and ask. He didn't check the transaction log. He didn't review the self-checkout data, which would have taken him 15 seconds and showed a completed, fully paid transaction. Instead, he picked up the store phone and called the police at 2:19 p.m. He told the dispatcher there was a man who appeared to have bypassed the self-checkout without paying for his items. The dispatcher asked if the store's theft alarm had gone off. Bridwell said no. The dispatcher asked if the man had attempted to conceal anything. Bridwell said no, but he wanted an officer anyway. The call was logged. A unit was dispatched. Officer Dennis Hargrove responded. Dennis Hargrove was 29 years old. He had been with the Fairfax County Police Department for 5 years. In those 5 years, he had collected 7 formal complaints. 5 of them involved allegations of racial profiling or aggressive treatment of people of color. 2 had been sustained, resulting in written reprimands and mandatory de-escalation training. The other 5 were closed. His supervisors wrote in his evaluations that Hargrove was highly motivated and proactive, but sometimes lacked patience in low-threat encounters. Those words never turned into real consequences. The pattern kept building. Nobody stopped it. Hargrove arrived at Preston's Market at 2:24 p.m. Bridwell met him at the entrance and pointed toward the exit vestibule where Holloway was pushing his cart toward the sliding doors. A black man, grocery bags, walking out. That was the whole picture. Hargrove walked toward him. Do you think store managers who call the police on paying customers without checking transaction records first should face disciplinary action? Drop your answer below. Holloway was 3 steps from the exit doors when an officer appeared in front of him. Young, hand on his belt. Standing between Holloway and the door, put the bags down, step away from the cart. Holloway stopped. He looked at the officer, then he looked at the receipt in his hand. I just paid for all of this. I'm walking to my car. My receipt is right here. The store manager says you bypassed the self-checkout without scanning everything. Put the bags down. That is not true. I scanned every single item. The receipt shows every item. The total matches what I paid. Look at it. He held the receipt out. Hargrove didn't take it, didn't even look at it. I'm not interested in your receipt right now. Put the bags down and step over here. Holloway's voice stayed level, calm, controlled. 16 years of FBI training running through every word. Officer, my name is Special Agent Terrence Holloway. I am with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I am off duty. I paid for every item in this cart and I have the receipt in my hand. My FBI credentials are in my back pocket. Let me show them to you and we can end this right now. Hargrove's expression tightened. FBI, sure you are. And I'm James Bond, bags down, hands where I can see them. This is where bias becomes a locked door that no amount of evidence can open. Hargrove had a man standing in front of him holding a receipt. The self-checkout machine had processed the transaction without a single error. No alarm had gone off. The man was calm, cooperative, and offering to show federal law enforcement credentials, and Hargrove dismissed every single piece of it. In his mind, the store manager had pointed at a black man and said he stole something, and that was the end of the investigation. The receipt had to be from another trip. The credentials had to be fake. The calm had to be an act. His bias was so complete that it replaced a fully verified transaction with a crime that never happened. Should officers be required to review store transaction records and receipts before taking any action against a customer accused of shoplifting? Let me know what you think. The vestibule was getting crowded. A family walking in with 2 kids stopped and moved to the side. A man coming out with a single bag paused near the door. An older woman put her hand on her cart and watched. Inside the store, 2 cashiers at the regular lanes craned their necks to see what was happening. Phones came out. Officer, I am asking you to look at my receipt. I am asking you to check with the self-checkout system. I am asking you to let me show you my credentials. You have 3 ways to verify right now that no crime happened. Use one of them. I don't take orders from shoplifters. Turn around. Hands behind your back. I am not a shoplifter. I am a federal agent. And what you are doing right now is going to follow you for the rest of your career. Turn around, now, or I am adding resisting to the list. Holloway looked around the vestibule. He saw the phones. He saw the witnesses. He made the calculation every black man in America has been forced to make at one point or another. Fight the moment or survive it and fight the system later. I am complying under protest. My name is Special Agent Terrence Holloway, FBI. I have committed no crime. I paid for every item in this cart. The receipt is in my right hand. I am being detained for grocery shopping. Everyone recording, please continue. He turned around slowly. Hargrove grabbed his wrists and cuffed him. The receipt fell from Holloway's hand and landed face up on the floor near the cart. A woman standing by the door looked down at it. She could see the store logo, the itemized list, the total, and the payment confirmation. She picked it up and held it. This receipt has everything on it. He paid for all of it. It's right here. Hargrove didn't respond. He walked Holloway through the vestibule toward the exit. People moved out of the way. A man outside the door shook his head. A teenager outside lowered his skateboard and started filming. The family with 2 kids pulled their children closer. Todd Bridwell stood at the customer service desk, watching through the window. He said nothing. He did nothing. He had started this, and now he was watching it unfold like it had nothing to do with him. Hargrove walked Holloway to his patrol car in the parking lot and placed him in the back seat. Then he went back inside to talk to Bridwell. That was his first mistake after the handcuffs. Because while Hargrove was inside, Sergeant Rosa Castellano pulled into the lot. Castellano was an 18-year veteran. She had heard the call come in and decided to swing by on her way to another assignment. She saw a man in the back of a patrol car. She saw a cart full of bagged groceries sitting in the vestibule. She saw a woman standing near the door holding a receipt and talking to other customers. She walked over. What happened here? The woman with the receipt spoke first. She explained everything. The man had paid. He had the receipt. He showed it to the officer. The officer didn't look at it. He cuffed him anyway. Castellano took the receipt and looked at it, every item listed. Total $147.32. Payment debit card ending in 8804. Transaction time 2:18 p.m. She looked at the bags in the cart. She counted the items. They matched. She walked to the patrol car and opened the back door. Sir, I'm Sergeant Castellano. Can you tell me what happened? Sergeant, my name is Terrence Holloway. I'm a special agent with the FBI Washington Field Office. I did my grocery shopping. I scanned and paid for every item at self-checkout. The receipt was in my hand when your officer stopped me. I offered to show it. He refused. I offered to show my FBI credentials. He refused. I told him to check the self-checkout system. He refused. He handcuffed me in front of a store full of people for buying groceries. Castellano reached into Holloway's back pocket and pulled out the black leather credential case. She opened it. FBI Special Agent Terrence Holloway, gold badge, photo ID, Washington Field Office. She closed the case. She closed her eyes for a second, then she uncuffed him. Agent Holloway, I am very sorry. This should not have happened. Hargrove came back out of the store and stopped when he saw Castellano standing next to an uncuffed Holloway, holding FBI credentials in one hand and the receipt in the other. The color drained from his face. Castellano turned to him. Her voice was quiet. That made it worse. You cuffed a federal agent for buying groceries. He had a receipt. He offered to show it. You refused. He told you he was FBI. You laughed at him. The receipt matches every item in the cart. His credentials are real. Explain to me what probable cause you had for any of this. Hargrove opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Badge and weapon. You are on administrative leave. Do not say another word until you have a union representative. Castellano then walked inside and found Bridwell at the customer service desk. She asked him to pull up the self-checkout transaction log for Register 4 at 2:18 p.m. He did. Every item scanned. Every item paid for. No flags. No errors. No discrepancies of any kind. Castellano looked at him. You called the police on a customer who paid for everything. Why? Bridwell stuttered. He said it looked like the man might have missed some items. Castellano asked what items. Bridwell couldn't name a single one. She asked if he had checked the transaction log before calling. He had not. She asked if the theft alarm had gone off. It had not. She told him to expect a call from the department's detective bureau by morning. Then she walked out. Should store managers face criminal charges for filing false theft reports that lead to wrongful arrests of paying customers? Drop your answer. By Monday morning, the videos were everywhere. 5 different angles. Holloway holding his receipt out. Hargrove refusing to look at it. The handcuffs going on. The woman picking up the fallen receipt and showing it to the camera. Castellano uncuffing Holloway and holding his FBI badge. The headlines came fast. FBI agent handcuffed at grocery store after officer refuses to look at receipt. Federal agent detained for buying groceries after store manager calls police. Off-duty FBI agent cuffed in Fairfax store while holding proof he paid. Grocery shopping while black trends again after FBI agent racially profiled in Virginia. The video hit 3 million views by Monday night. By Friday, 8 million. The FBI Agents Association released a statement expressing concern. The NAACP Fairfax chapter demanded a full investigation of both the police department and the store. The Virginia State Conference of the NAACP called for a review of the county's policing practices. Todd Bridwell was fired by Hartwell Grocery Group within 48 hours. The company released a statement saying his actions were inconsistent with our values and our policies. But the internet had already found the 2 prior complaints against him. Both involving black customers, both closed with no action. The statement about values rang hollow. Holloway retained the firm of Garrett, Palmer and Associates, one of the top civil rights practices in the D.C. metro area. The lawsuit was filed 5 weeks after the incident. It named Officer Dennis Hargrove, Todd Bridwell, Preston's Market, Hartwell Grocery Group, and the Fairfax County Police Department. The claims included unlawful detention without probable cause, false imprisonment, racial profiling under federal and Virginia civil rights law, Fourth and 14th Amendment violations, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and failure to train and supervise an officer with a documented pattern of discriminatory conduct. The complaint included Hargrove's full record: 7 complaints in 5 years, 5 involving racial profiling, 2 sustained, 5 ignored. It also included Bridwell's 3 prior incidents of calling police on black customers, all documented, all dismissed. The county's legal team reviewed the evidence: 5 videos, the receipt, the self-checkout transaction log showing a complete error-free purchase, FBI credentials, Hargrove's complaint history, Bridwell's complaint history, Castellano's own report confirming the entire stop was baseless. There was no angle from which this was defensible. The county and Hartwell Grocery Group settled jointly in 6 months. They paid Special Agent Terrence Holloway $2.6 million. Officer Dennis Hargrove was terminated 9 weeks after the incident. The termination letter stated, Officer Hargrove detained a citizen without probable cause, refused to examine a receipt offered as proof of purchase, dismissed the individual's identification as a federal law enforcement officer, and applied handcuffs to a fully compliant individual in a public setting. Despite 7 prior complaints and 2 sustained findings, Officer Hargrove continued to demonstrate biased policing practices. His employment is terminated immediately. His name was added to the National Decertification Index. His career was over at 29. Should grocery chains face mandatory civil rights training audits when their employees generate multiple complaints involving racial profiling of customers? Let me know in the comments. The Fairfax County Board of Supervisors convened a special hearing. How had Hargrove stayed on patrol through 7 complaints? Why was a probationary error recommendation for additional oversight never followed up on? Why had the department not flagged his file after the 2nd sustained complaint? Internal Affairs conducted a review. The results were familiar: complaints logged but not escalated, training sessions completed on paper but never evaluated for effectiveness, supervisors who noted issues and moved on, a system designed to process paperwork, not change behavior. New policies were announced. Any officer with 3 or more discrimination-related complaints would be removed from street patrol and placed on supervised duty pending a full review. All retail shoplifting calls would require officers to verify store records and examine available receipts before making physical contact with any individual. Body camera footage from any complaint-generating encounter would be reviewed by an independent panel within 72 hours. Special Agent Terrence Holloway testified at the hearing. His testimony was precise, measured, and devastating. I have been a special agent with the FBI for 16 years. I have investigated organized crime, public corruption, and domestic terrorism. I have worked with the CIA, the NSA, and Homeland Security. I have received commendations from 2 directors of the FBI. I was handcuffed in the entrance of a grocery store for buying chicken and rice. He paused. I had my receipt in my hand. I held it out. The officer did not look at it. I told him my name and my agency. He laughed. I offered to show my credentials. He told me to turn around. The self-checkout system had a complete record of every item I scanned and every dollar I paid. Nobody checked it. The store manager called the police without checking his own transaction log. And the officer who showed up trusted the manager's word over a receipt, a badge, and a federal ID. Because I am a black man, and that was enough to make me guilty. Another pause. 7 complaints in 5 years. That is not one mistake. That is not 2 bad days. That is a pattern your department documented and did nothing about. His voice was the same voice that had testified in federal courtrooms for a decade and a half. Steady, factual, impossible to dismiss. $2.6 million is a number. It is accountability. But it does not take away the feeling of handcuffs clicking shut while people stare at you in a grocery store. It does not take back the moment when your 12-year-old son sees the video and asks you why the policeman arrested you. It does not undo having to explain to a child that sometimes it does not matter what you have done or who you are. Sometimes all that matters is what you look like. He looked at the board. If this can happen to me, a federal law enforcement officer with 16 years and 2 directors' commendations, what happens to the man who works the night shift and stops at the grocery store on his way home? What happens to the college kid buying food with money from his summer job? What happens to the people who do not carry a federal badge in their back pocket? The room was silent. Should repeated racial profiling complaints against any government employee, whether police officer or store manager, automatically trigger an independent federal civil rights review? Drop your answer. This was never about one grocery store or one officer or one Sunday afternoon. This was proof that for some people, a receipt in your hand, a completed transaction on the screen, and FBI credentials in your pocket still are not enough when someone has already decided you are guilty. Terrence Holloway scanned every item. He paid for every item. The system recorded every item. He took his receipt. He held it out for the officer to see, and he still ended up in handcuffs. Because a store manager saw a black man at a self-checkout and decided something must be wrong, and an officer showed up and agreed without checking a single fact. The receipt had to be old. The badge had to be fake. The transaction log did not matter. Their bias was so automatic that it overwrote a machine-verified, digitally recorded, fully paid transaction with a crime that never happened. This is how racism works when it hides behind policy and procedure. It is a store manager who watches one customer more closely than the others, and then calls it loss prevention. It is an officer who shows up and takes a manager's word as gospel without looking at a receipt that is literally being held out in front of him. It is a department that gets complaint after complaint and responds with training that changes nothing and reviews that go nowhere. It is a system that treats discrimination as an inconvenience instead of a failure. And when that bias is backed by the authority to stop, accuse, and handcuff, it does not just harm one person. It tells every black man in every grocery store that your money, your receipt, your credentials, and your service to your country are still not enough to keep you from being treated like a criminal. Dennis Hargrove's career is over. That's justice. The county paid $2.6 million. That's accountability. Todd Bridwell was fired and publicly named. That's consequence. But money and terminations do not undo the sound of handcuffs in a quiet grocery store. They do not take away a 12-year-old boy's question. They do not erase the feeling of standing in the back of a police car while strangers stare through the windows at a man whose only crime was buying groceries. The real question is, what changes now? Do departments finally pull officers from the street after 2 sustained complaints instead of waiting for 8? Do stores finally check their own records before picking up the phone? Do we finally stop accepting instinct and experience as cover words for bias? Because if we do not fix the systems that let Hargrove keep his badge through 7 complaints, if we do not change the culture that let Bridwell call the police 3 times on paying customers without consequence, then we are just waiting for the next officer, the next manager, the next self-checkout, the next receipt that nobody bothers to read, the next video. Comment if you believe this should be law. Any retail establishment that calls law enforcement on a customer without first verifying its own transaction records faces automatic civil liability, and officers with 3 or more sustained profiling complaints are permanently removed from patrol. And if you believe these stories need to be heard, if you believe accountability starts with the truth, then do this right now. Hit that subscribe button. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to see it. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. We are not stopping. We are going to keep exposing these patterns. We are going to keep demanding better. We are going to keep fighting for the agents, the shoppers, the fathers, the students, and every ordinary person who deserves to buy groceries without being treated like a thief. This is not just about one officer or one grocery store. It is about all of us, and the world we choose to accept.